This morning's subject is the four mighty ones. The history of humanity is little else than a long struggle with this infinite riddle, the riddle of the four mighty ones. When Origen, one of the early church fathers, was asked, why are there four gospels? Why not one? He answered and said, because there are four quarters of the heavens, north, south, east, and west, and therefore four quarters of the human soul. The Bible speaks of this riddle, which we will quote from the book of Proverbs. And I will tell you the promises made to the individual and to the nation who can answer or unriddle the riddle. It is veiled throughout from Genesis to the book of Revelations. The four rivers, the four horsemen, the four features around the throne of God, the four men loose and walking in the fire, and the form of the fourth was like the Son of God. And they parted his raiment into four parts. And they parted his raiment into four parts. Throughout, they speak of the four. But man cannot seem to unriddle the riddle. This morning I hope to do it. And if I do it to your satisfaction, so you walk in it, then certain things should happen to you. Now let us see what should happen to us. First, let me quote the riddle. It is from the 30th chapter of the book of Proverbs. Who hath gathered the wind in his fist? Who hath bound the waters in a garment? Who hath established all the ends of the earth? What is his name, and what is his name, and what is his son's name? Canst thou tell? For that is the riddle. Can we tell it? Do we know the name of the one who did it? Do we know the son's name, and you follow it closely? The first is spirit, the second is water, and the third is earth. That is the question asked. The first one is about the wind. Well, the wind in all languages, in all ages, has been used as a synonym for spirit. The breath. He speaks of water second. The mystic knows water in the Bible, and all scriptures symbolize psychological truth, the ideas that men entertain as truth. Either true or false, if he accepts it and consents to it, he weaves this into a garment. So he wonders who has actually gathered or bound the waters in a garment. And the third, who has established all the ends of the earth? Who made it fixed? Who could take this liquid state that is only a moving state, that is unseen, and objectify, actually establish as something that is solidly real and make it to others a fact? You know the name. What is his name, and what is his son's name? Canst thou tell? Now, let us now turn to the promises. I will set him on high because he hath known my name, which you read in the 9th Psalm, which all of us love to recite. I will set him on high. When I am set on high, does it mean I am made a king, a president, a dictator, a great giant of industry? It has nothing to do with such exalted positions on earth. For the real journey of a man is up the ladder of awareness, ever-increasing awareness, an awareness of objects of increasing significance. But I am set on high because I know the name. A bird will not be merely a feathered creature. A bird will be to me what it was to Blake. Simply a wonderful delight, a heavenly delight, bringing me a message. Birds will talk to me, not as you understand language, but their very flight will reveal to me God's intent. They will speak to me, not only trees, birds. Everything in the world is the language of God. When man is lifted up, they cease to be objects. They are expressions of meaning. As a book is lifted up in consciousness from merely an object in space to a series of marks on paper, to finally an expression of meaning. As I ascend in consciousness, I lift an object. But if I am lifted up because I know the name, then every object in space ceases to be objects. They have meaning, and they're expressing meaning. So I can read the open book of God. A tree now becomes a message. Birds in flight. Why 2 and not 3? Or why 3 and not 10? Why in the form in which they did fly? There is no accident. Everything is the unfolding pages of God's book to the man who is set on high, because he knows the name. The name then becomes, we are told, a strong tower, and the righteous runneth into it and is saved. Now, let us take one more promise, and you answer whether nations know the name. If our priests and our rabbis and our leaders, who should know the name, really know the name. For this is the promise that the prophet gives us in the book of Micah. All the people will walk, everyone in the name of his God, and we will all walk in the name of the Lord our God. And in that day, all the nations will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks, and no nation shall lift a sword against a nation. And they shall learn war no more. And the history of humanity has been the history of war and crime, and these words were penned hundreds and hundreds of years before our era. Hundreds of years before, only the individual has found the name and become one who took his own sword and turned it into a plowshare. He escaped from the turmoil. The individual mystic, the individually awakened man or woman who found the name in the midst of the struggle. He goes in and finds a Savior in the name. It is a strong tower to him. And now he goes in and he rests. He is lifted up on high, and he sees the unfolding of the time. Now, if nations really knew it, if the word uttered by the priest really was the name, if the rabbi pronouncing the so-called holy word was the name, we would not have war. So the name as sounded by the priesthoods of the world cannot be the name. So what is the name? Let us go back now to the riddle. Who hath gathered the wind in his fist? What imagery? What is the fist? The fist is the symbol of the first letter in the great mystery name of God. The fist is John. Now, what is a fist? The hand is the one organ of the human body that sets him completely apart from the whole of creation. So it begins the name of God. For without a hand, if I was simply an Einstein multiplied by the nth number, I would only be a smart monkey. I could not build. I could not fashion. I could not mold. I could not create. I could have all the ideas in the world, but without a hand, I would not be a creator. So here that very first question asked is about the creative being. For the wind is spirit. I am speaking now of the creative spirit. And so it puts it into the form of a fist. Who has taken it and gathered all the wind in its fist? So we find the first letter that is in the language of the mystic, to be aware. Can you conceive of being any place in this world and not being aware? You may not know who you are. You may not know where you are. You may suffer from total amnesia, but you can never in eternity not know that you are. It is the one thing of which man is sure. I am. He knows that he is. And he doesn't know who he is and where he is and where he is and what he is, but he cannot stop knowing that he is. So that is the very first question asked. That creative spirit which is the Jod, which is simply being aware. The second one now. Who bound the waters in a garment? When I speak of garments in the scriptures, they symbolize what the mind wears. When a man is clothed in soft raiment, we are told he is in the king's house, and the kingdom is within. He does not have teachings concerning external life. When a man comes clothed in camel's hair or a leather girdle, these are made from external objects, made from skin, made from hair. The most external thing on a man. So that man's teaching is represented by external things. Therefore, he speaks externally. He does not speak of the kingdom within. He speaks of the things without that man should do. You have two coats. Give one to one who has not any. You have more than you can eat. Give some to one who is hungry. But when one comes wearing soft raiment, he doesn't tell you anything to do on the outside, for he is now clothed with the clothing of the king. And the king is in the kingdom, and the kingdom is within. So we speak now of a garment. A garment simply represents the intelligence of the individual, or what the individual has accepted as true. Now, where we speak of water, he gathers water into a garment, and water is psychological truth. Now, who can take a mere assumption and gather it into something that is altogether real to him, that no one sees, as you would take, say, the cloud and gather it and form it? And then the third one, who can solidify it? Who has established all the ends of the earth? What is his name? Go back to the name. We found that the hand was Jod, and the second letter in the great creative power, known as Jod Hival. Yirhi is he. He is symbolized as a window. The window of the man is his mind. With my mind I see. With my imagination I see in fashion, so I will now gather in my imagination what I want to be in this world. So I will gather it without the aid of any external force. When I see clearly in my mind's eye what I would like to be, I have gathered this state into a garment. Now, how to solidify it? What is the third letter in the name? This mystery name. The third letter is Bow, and Bow is symbolized as a nail. A nail binds together. It joins things together. So I can stand here, and first I am aware. Just simply aware. Then I become aware of something, and I become very discriminating, very selective. There are numberless things of which I am aware, but I need not single out one to become identified with it. But I will simply let them all pass through the mind, as it were. Then I will hold upon one. I will arrest one. The kind of man that I would like to be, well, I will fashion that into a garment. The next step is now bringing it into solidity, which is the vow. But how do I apply the name to the point where I can use the vow in my name? I will assume that I am that man. When I walk in the assumption, I am walking in his name. We are told in this state, all will walk in the name of his God. I have found the name, found it within myself as first my awareness, my ability to become aware of something, my ability to become not only aware of it, but to become aware of being it. So I walk as though I am the man that I want to be. So I solidify it. And the last letter only bears witness of the internal imagery. For the last letter is another he. So there are two. He's a name, Jod, and a vowel. You cannot sound it. Jehovah is not the name. Roughly translated, it is I am. But you have got to tear it apart and know what you mean by I am. For to say, go and tell them I am. I'm sent you unto them. When I go to Israel and they ask me who sent you, what is your thought? Just say, I am, has sent me unto you, and then complete it and tell them, I am, that I am, that I am. What does it mean? I am that. Yes, that is as it is because I am. Were I different, that would have to be different. So I am that mirrors the being that I am. For what I see the world to be is a measure of my own level of consciousness. For whatever it is seen to be is a direct index to the level of consciousness of the observer of the world. It's not the world. I am that. I really am. And that could not be other than what it is while I remain as I am. The slightest change in my level of consciousness, the slightest change in the feeling of I am this, results in a corresponding change in that, which is the world round about me. Let me now desire peace and actually walk in the name of peace. that there is peace in my world, and I will look upon a world and I will see peace where others see conflict, for I am only seeing that at all times. So what is my authority? My authority is I am has sent me unto you, and I am that I am. Do I know it? If I know it, I will never complain. If I broke my neck, I would know. You could not have done it unto me. I did it unto myself. If I find myself in any state in the world, I could not complain. For I have found the law. I have found the name by which all these things are gathered together. All the creative spirit in the world is gathered in the name, and the name is I am. But the name must be torn apart and be shown as four mighty ones, and not just a single. It is all one, but there are four distinct functions of the one. There are not four fingers or four separate beings living in man. God is one, and his name is one, but there are four distinct functions, and you can call them the four Gospels. Call them the four garments that he wore. Call them the four rivers flowing out of Eden. Call them the four creatures surrounding the great throne of God. Call them four, but understand what you mean by the four. So when you walk the earth, you walk in his name. If I can walk in his name, then I know what built the world, what keeps it, sustains and establishes every end of this fabulous, wonderful universe. It is the name, and the name is simply I am. It is not Jehovah. It is not Christ Jesus. It isn't the Lord. It's not a thing you utter. It's a thing you keep in the silence of the heart, because you know you are, and you don't have to affirm, I am in order to be. You simply know that you are. And the one sure thing in this world that everyone knows, he knows that he is. But he doesn't know sometimes who he is. He doesn't know sometimes where he is, and sometimes he doesn't know what he is. But at all times he knows that he is. That is the one deep conviction in the heart of every man. So he walks in that, but he has to tear it apart and get understanding of the four mighty ones within him, given to us in a symbolical way in the Job. Those not understanding it within themselves treat it so sacredly, they will even cover the name as they unfold the scroll to read it. Have you ever gone to these wonderful churches and seen them reading a scroll that man himself wrote, or some rabbi wrote that down, yet when he comes to read it, he will cover it, because he must not look upon the name of God. It's a holy name. It's not on paper. It's not on the scroll. He can't even utter it. It's within him as his awareness, his ability to become aware of things, his ability to become aware of being the state of which formerly he was only aware of. And he walks as it, and then he objectifies it. And it becomes that. So I am that I am. So when a world is described from observation, it is always as described, revealing the level of consciousness of the describing being. It is not the world. That changes automatically. If I, in one little way, change within myself. Now today, test it. Test the name. He said, I have kept everything you gave me in your name and mine, and my name are one. We have the same name, so when you spell the Son's name, strangely enough, you start off Jod, Hebal. When you spell Jesus in Hebrew, it begins Jod, Hebal. You don't have to go further. That is the creative power. To be aware of, and to be aware of, and to be aware of being the state decided on. And then, but it's not Jesus. You don't sound Jesus. It's simply in the being's own heart. Now, the day we really believe it and are bold enough to walk in that name, there will be peace in the world. If we turn on the outside to an external God, there will be war in the world. For you have denied me, and when you deny the real God, there is confusion and conflict in the world. For any man who turns to a power outside of himself and bows before it as some sacred relic or some sacred object or some sacred object, or in any other way turns to it. He worships idols, for the living God is within you. Ye are the temple of the living God. He's not outside, and to look on the outside is to be led astray. And when you are led astray, you are led into confusion, and nothing but confusion, and nothing but confusion would result, and therefore conflict and war. When a man finds the name and answers the riddle, he is set on high. I can promise you a thrill beyond your wildest dreams when you begin to toy with it and test it. And if you are lifted up even one little level beyond where you now stand, so meaning begins to reveal itself, a world of meaning. There isn't a thing in the world without meaning. There is no accident. Not one little thing in the world is without significance. And when you lift in consciousness to the level of meaning, where things take on greater and greater significance, what a world into which man then rises. So the whole thing begins in that 4th verse of the 30th chapter of the book of Proverbs. He asks first, who hath ascended into heaven and who hath descended? Then he puts the riddle, and the same being that descended is the one that first ascended. And the one that ascended was the one that descended was the one that descended. So this is the great ladder of life, the ladder of consciousness, on which the individual descends here to discover his own being, the 4 mighty ones within him. And when he finds himself completely shut out from that knowledge, and he starts the conflict within himself, and discovers within himself, and discovers within himself the cause of all the phenomena of the world, then he starts to ascend. The same being that is going to ascend is the one that descended in consciousness to the level of complete and utter confusion. Now today, to make it practical, as we did in the 2nd chapter of my latest book, I treated it as a drama, and the 4 mighty ones in you. Play with it. Call yourself a producer. You are going to produce a play, and the producer in man only suggests the theme. He goes no further. Wouldn't it be wonderful? And you name it, were I. And you name it successful, happy, and you name a certain state, but you go no further as the judge. He only suggests the spirit, for he just takes the wind, and that he binds in his fist. He only recommends the motive, the little theme. The second one, now in man that works out, that theme is the author. And the author in man is man's wonderful inner creative power that can take the theme of success and work out the last scene, which implies the theme is realized. What would I do were I successful? What would I see? What would I say? How would I act? Well, then construct one little theme or little scene which implies the fulfillment of my desire. That is now the 2nd mighty one's work. The 3rd mighty one's work in man is the director. The director in man is man's controlled attention, so that my attention must be completely absorbed in the single idea, the idea which implies the fulfillment of my wish. Now, the 4th one is the one whose form is like unto the Son of God. Now, who is the 4th one in man that will now do it? Man's imagination. Man's real being is a splendid imagination. An imagination has form, but man does not understand it, and man doesn't believe it. But the real being is imagination. It can be anything in this world. And so he puts himself through the paces by simply inwardly enacting the drama that he himself has constructed, and whatever it would be that he is constructing, which drama implies the fulfillment of his theme. He inwardly acts it over and over and over and over and over again until it takes on the tones of reality. When inwardly he feels natural in the part that in which he is now CNF, rehearsed the curtain will rise, and he will see it there. He will cast the inner drama on the screen of space, and he will see moving on the screen of space all the characters necessary to complete the play. He doesn't have to consciously direct one of them. They become relevant to his theme. And because they are relevant, they are drawn into the drama without their knowledge, without their consent. Any change in the drama must take place within him and not them. So he never appeals to one on the outside to change. He leaves them just as they are, and he rewrites the play within himself and changes the end. As he changes the end, the whole cast are cast in different roles and have moved back into his world to complete his play. So the four mighty ones in man may be likened to the producer, the author, the director, and the actor, the four most important members in the production of a play. And this is a play. The whole vast world is a play. This is a stage. But this actual movement and the actual drama is not taking place out there. It has been conceived, dramatized, rehearsed, and completely enacted elsewhere. When you see it here, it is as much a screen as when you see a picture on the screen later on today. You cannot appeal to the actors to change. They cannot even hear you. Any change in the script must take place where it first originated. Not here. This is only a screen. So as Blake said, all that you behold, though it appears without, it is within, in your imagination, of which this world of mortality is but a shadow. So when you find the four mighty ones, you have found the name. And when you find the name, you will be set on high. You will run into it like a strong tower and be saved, and there will be peace in your world. If a nation finds it, there will be complete peace in the world. If the individual finds it, it is peace in his world. Though the whole vast world rages, in his world there shall be peace. Not a thing will touch him, for he has found the name. And the purpose of this whole vast journey is to find the name and the Son's name. If I find the Father's name, his name is just like mine. So I have found my name. And the name ceases then to be Neville. It ceases to be John, to be Mary, but you never utter it. It is your sacred trust. You tell it to no one. You keep everything in the name, but you don't tell it. In other words, you will call yourself by some other tag, but the real name is covered from sight because you yourself cover it. You walk in the name. Now you can try it and see if I have told you the truth this morning. See if you cannot conceive of things today and identify yourself with it. Remain faithful to that association and see if that association will not result in a corresponding state in the outer world. Boldly assume that you are the one that you want to be. Remain faithful to the assumption and see if it will not establish itself and become hardened into fact. And you will know then the one who really establishes all the ends of the earth. For your earth will be anchored down and bearing witness of the man, the woman, that you have conceived yourself to be. Then you'll be free of the greatest tyranny in the world. And the greatest tyranny in the world is the belief in the secondary cause. There is no second cause. There is only first cause. And the cause of everything is the name. But when you don't know it, well then you blame another. And I cannot conceive of a greater tyranny than the belief in a second cause. There is only one God expressing himself as four mighty ones within the individual. So think now of your personality as something that is informed by this mighty selfhood, but informed by it in respect to its level of consciousness in varying degrees. On one level, I am informed as to the language of birds. On another level, the language of trees. And on another level, the language of the motion of clouds. Every little formed cloud is telling me something. Every little ripple is telling me something. On a certain level, the language is revealed. On a lower level, it is simply an object moving in space. Lift up the object only, any object, and it takes on increasing significance. And what a thrill when man so lifts himself that everything is talking and telling him of the kingdom within him, of the king himself, that not one little thing is by accident. That the bird that seemingly is wild and simply lit its yard just for a moment on its way south or north did not by accident life. It brought a message, and every little thing in the world is telling you something when you rise in consciousness. And you rise in consciousness. The day you find the name and walk in it, for I will set him on high, because he had found my name. He knows my name. The only reason for the lifting up was the knowledge of the name. So you take this morning's drama, enact it within yourself, and see if you yourself cannot prove to your own satisfaction you have found the name by changes in consciousness. Not only here, but your dreams will change, your visions will change. Everything will change. Everything will change. Everything changed, and the success, or rather the change or the cause of all change is you. No other cause. If you change, everything will change. And now my time is up. Well, my first proposition is this one. The individual state of consciousness determines the conditions and the circumstances of his life. The second proposition is that man can select the state of consciousness with which he desires to be identified. And the third follows naturally. Therefore, man can be what he wants to be. If the first proposition is true, that the individual state of consciousness is the sole cause of the phenomena of his life, then the normal, natural question that is asked, why doesn't he change it to a more desirable state if he could change it? Well, that is not as easy as it appears. Today we hope to give you a technique to make it easier. But man finds it very hard to leave the things to which he has grown accustomed. We are all grown stuck in the habitual. It may seem strange, but a very sordid cartoon appeared years ago. That is during the last war. You might have seen it. It came out in the New Yorker, and it was won by George Price. In it is one single little room, a sink piled high with unwashed dishes, plaster falling from the walls, and these two middle-aged people, she's sitting on a chair reading a letter, disheveled, matted hair, and he with torn clothes and feet stuck upon the table, and feet stuck upon the table, and socks exposing hose, and the caption of the picture is this. She's reading a letter from a soldier, son abroad. He says he's homesick. Now, you should see the interior of this house. One room completely disheveled, but the lad was homesick. Now, man finds it difficult to detach himself from the habitual. So this morning we have brought you these three propositions, and I hope I can make it clear that you can, with this knowledge, apply it, so that you can realize your every objective. It is the height of folly to expect changes to come about by the mere passage of time, for that which requires a state of consciousness to produce its effect could not be effective without such a state of consciousness. So if I must be in the consciousness of the thing that I am seeking before I find it, then the only thing to do is to acquire that state of consciousness. Most of us do not even know what we mean by state of consciousness. To those who are here for the first time, it is simply meant by state of consciousness the sum total of all that a man believes and accepts and consents to as true. Now, it need not be true. It may be, but it need not be true. It could be false. It could be a half-truth. It could be a lie. It could be a superstition. It could be a prejudice. But the sum total of all that a man believes constitutes his state of consciousness. It is the house in which he abides. And as long as he remains in that house, similar problems will confront him. The circumstances of life will remain the same. He may move physically across the ends of the earth, but he will encounter similar conditions. He can't get away from the house in which he abides. The Bible speaks of these houses as mansions of the Lord. It speaks of them as cities. It speaks of them as rooms, as upper rooms. All kinds of words are used to describe individual states of awareness. And the appeal in the Bible is always to move out and occupy the upper story, meaning to move up to a higher level within oneself. Now, if you do not know the state in which you abide, it's a very simple technique you may employ to discover that state. For the man dwelling in a state, and we all dwell in states, could easily discover the state by listening within himself and observing his own internal mental conversations. For the state is singing its own song, and it reveals itself in man's inner speech. If you will listen attentively and uncritically to what inwardly you are saying, you will discover the state. And it will not surprise you that things are as they are, for you will hear within yourself the cause of the phenomena of life, so that what you are inwardly saying and doing is far more important than what you outwardly know or seemingly outwardly express. So when a man knows what inwardly he is doing, then he can change it. If you have never uncritically observed your reactions to life, if you are totally unaware of your subjective behavior, then you are unaware of the cause of the things in your world. But if you become aware of the state, then you simply go about changing it. Now here is a technique I have found most helpful, and I find that it works like a miracle. Anyone can do it. I know that some of you here possibly come from extreme orthodox walks of life, and it may seem strange to you even to be here, but I assure you, you are not alone. Many of your leaders in the orthodox field seek an audience with the speaker. Many a rabbi has been in my home, many a priest, and many a Protestant leader, many of them. They come to my home for interpretations of the book That Puppetry. They wouldn't dare give any interpretation other than the most extreme, literal interpretation. So don't be surprised if you hear things here that might startle you. Your leaders are startled. But this is a technique I have found most helpful. First of all, man stands forever in the presence of an infinite and eternal energy, from which energy all things proceed, but it follows definite patterns. It just doesn't move out of man and crystallize in things in some strange, haphazard manner. It follows a definite track, and the track it follows is laid down by the man himself in his own internal conversation. So though man is called upon to change his thinking that he may change his world, for we are told be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Man can't change his thinking unless he changes his ideas, for he thinks from his ideas. So if I would change and become transformed, I must lay new tracks. And the tracks I lay are always laid down in my own internal conversation. So what am I saying now when seemingly I am alone? I can sit in that chair or stand here or walk the streets and I can't stop talking. Man does not realize that he is talking because he is never still enough to listen to the voice speaking within himself. But inwardly, he is whispering what outwardly is taking place as conditions and circumstances. Most of the things he whispers are negative in justifying his behavior. There is no need to justify. He is excusing delay or excusing failure, or he is arguing, or he is judging harshly, or he is condemning. Many of us have secret affection for hurts. We don't want to be liked by certain people. We just wouldn't like it. We just don't want certain things to take place in our world, even though they may bring a greater comfort and a greater satisfaction. Man has a peculiar, strange feeling, a little affection for the feeling of being unwanted or the feeling of being hurt, and he likes to talk about it. Well, try to pull that man out of that habitual state. It would be just as difficult as to keep that soldier boy away from that sordid room. He goes back into the sordid rooms within himself. You don't see dishes unwashed within yourself. But if you could only see the internal psychological state in which most of us abide, we would see a room far dirtier than the one that George Price illustrated in the New Yorker magazine. They're all unwashed plates within us. On the outside, we wash them, but we are told in the Bible, we leave the inside unwashed and we become whited sepulchres. Now, if I sincerely desire to change my world, there is no one in my world I need change but myself. So that I don't need to change you as an individual, but I do need to change my attitude towards you. If you dislike me, or if I think you dislike me, or if your behavior offends me, the cause of my offense is not in you and your behavior, but I must look for that cause within myself. Now, if I seriously, and I am honest about my search, I will find it, and I will find that inwardly. When I think of you, it is never a pleasant conversation that I carry on with you. So let me sit down now and bring you before my mind's eye. And as I bring you before the mind's eye, let me imagine a conversation which would imply a radical change in my world. Let me bring you up and change my attitude toward you by laying new tracks relative to you. These tracks will then become the tracks across which this eternal energy will pour. An energy which is only thinking. Moving across the tracks laid down in my own inner conversations will result in changes in my outer world. Now, if I repeat the conversations and do it more often, then it becomes a habit. And I will find that when I'm about my Father's business in the outer world, I am inwardly, through habit, carrying on these changed and lovelier conversations. Now, a transformation of consciousness will definitely result in a change of environment and conditions. But I mean transformation of consciousness. I do not mean a slight alteration of consciousness, like a change of mood. It is nice to change a mood from some unlovely to a lovely, but I want the transformation. And by transformation, I mean that when one state into which I have moved, and moved so often that it becomes a habit, and that state grows stable, so that it expels from my consciousness all of its rivals, then that central habitual state defines my character and really constitutes my new world. It spells out a transformation. But if I only do it a little bit and return to my former state, then I might have had a temporary lift, but I will not notice radical changes in my outer world. I will notice these changes in my outer world if, inwardly, I have truly changed. Then, without effort on my part, I will find the outer world changing to correspond to the changes that took place within me. So you bear it in mind. I can't stress it too often. I can't give it too great importance. This wonderful thing called man's ability to talk within himself and without the aid of anyone in the world. Sitting alone at home, you can construct a sentence which would imply the fulfillment of the ideal. You can construct a sentence which would imply that a friend I bless, that she has realized her objective, that the thing you know she wants, she has. So what would she say to you had she realized it? Well, you listen attentively as though you heard, and you will really hear. If you are still enough, you will hear as coming from without what really you are whispering from within yourself. Man is this wonderful temple in which all the work takes place, and the outer world is only a projection of the work done within himself. This called present man, unfortunately, is asleep. It is told us so beautifully in the Bible that Adam slept in the 2nd chapter of Genesis. He was placed into a profound sleep from which he has not been awakened. There is no reference in the Bible where Adam was ever awakened from his sleep. But there is a reference where he awoke, but not as Adam. He awoke as a second man called Christ Jesus. So in Christ they awake. In Adam all sleep. But a man who is totally unaware of the mental activity that goes on within him is the one who sleeps as Adam. He doesn't know it. He walks with his eyes wide open. He may be a very important person in the world. He may be wealthy. He may be famous. He may have all the things that you admire. But if he is totally unaware of that mental activity, which is the cause of the phenomena of his life, that man is sound asleep. And he is personified as Adam. And he will read his Bible and think it is a literal story. He will read where Adam was put to sleep, and from Adam a rib was taken and a woman was formed called Eve. But when a man begins to awake, he realizes that this symbolical Eve of the Bible is only his own emanation, now called by the name of nature. And nature is his slave and must fashion life about him as he fashions it within himself. But if he is asleep, he fashions it in confusion. But he fashions it anyway. For he uses the very technique that his father used to build a world. He uses speech. He uses inner talking, and that's how this whole vast world was brought into being. So he uses the same technique. He has speech and he has mind. But in the state of sleep, he brings about strange conditions. And he doesn't know he's the cause of the strange conditions round about him. As he begins to awake, then he awakes only as one being. He awakes as Christ Jesus, and the being called Christ. Jesus, personified in our Gospels, is simply the awakened, loving imagination. Imaginative love, where only love guides. It is incapable of hearing anything but the lovely. When that being begins to awake, he doesn't see things in pure objectivity. He sees everything subjectively related to himself. He is incapable of meeting a stranger. He may meet one for the first time, but he knows it is not really a stranger, that the man had no power to come into his world save he from within himself, drew him. No man comes unto save I call him. No man takes away my life. I lay it down myself. You didn't choose me, I have chosen you. Though you seemingly come now for the first moment in my life, you still didn't choose me. I have chosen you. I see then every being subjectively related to myself. So in that state, you become incapable of hurt. You've overcome all the violence that formerly you've expressed in the world when you were asleep. There is no condemnation to the sleeping man. He is dreaming confusion because he doesn't know who he is. But he begins to awake by such techniques as given you this morning. If you take this technique and you try it consciously, for here I am appealing not to the passive mind that passively surrenders to appearances. I am appealing to the Christ in you, which is the active, conscious use of your lovely imagination. So when you sit down and you predetermine what you want to hear, and you listen until you hear it, and you refuse to hear anything other than that, then you are using the one power in the world that awakens a man, and you are using your lovely imagination, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. Here is a lady this past week. He has heard the story of revision. Her husband calls her, and it's a big deal. It runs into a fortune. He had sent off 600 feet of film to Acme, and they've returned the film. Only the first 300 were good. The second 3 were duds, as they call it. Not a thing was on it. A complete blank. Yet they were up against time. That 600 feet of film had to be on a plane headed for Chicago in the immediate present. less than 12 hours away. It had to be there. That was the contract. And 300 feet of film taken. No sound appeared, with the whole thing a blank. He sat down when her husband called her, desperately called her. He sat on the bed just where she had received the call, put the receiver up, and sat in the silence until she heard within herself that phone ringing, and across that wire the same voice, but now not an anxious voice, but a tender, loving voice, which was her husband, explaining that the whole thing had been resolved. They had found what seemingly they had lost forever. He sat in the silence for 1 hour and 10 minutes, and there she listened, and she listened until her whole body became still in hearing only what she wanted to hear. And an hour and 10 minutes later, while still in the silence, the phone rang. It's her husband calling to say that Acme just called him to explain and excuse themselves. It was their mistake. They had found the missing 300 feet of film. And there was not a dud. It wasn't a blank. The whole thing was perfect. Now, the average person, not knowing this law of revision, or even those knowing it, would have accepted as final the evidence of sense and receiving news that seemed so factual. They would have gone into a stew, bawled out Acme, and pulled all kinds of wires to correct it. But she heard and she acted upon it. And that's what I mean when I tell you that a little knowledge, if you carry it out in action, will be far more profitable than much knowledge which you neglect to carry out in action. Now, many of you present, and this is no judgment, you have the same knowledge that this lady has. She's been coming here recently, but she heard she attended all the meetings at the Ebel, and she's been here. Undoubtedly, she's here this morning. But at least she came the first 2 Sundays, and she hasn't missed one at the Ebel. And having heard the art of revision, she acted upon it. Others heard the art of revision. Have you acted upon it? Did you last night allow the sun to descend upon your wrath? Did you sleep last night with any trouble, any vexation unresolved? Or did you last night truly go to bed having resolved every vexation and trouble of the day? All the little problems, each one must be resolved. You rewrite the play. If you didn't rewrite yesterday's events and make them conform to the ideal you wish you had experienced, then you heard, but you aren't a doer. And so you are told in the Bible, would that ye be doers of the word and not mere hearers only? For if you are a hearer and not a doer, then you are like a man who sees his face in the glass and turns and straightway forgets what manner of man he is. But if you are a doer and not a forgetful hearer, then you shall be blessed with the deed. For you will look into the law of liberty, and you will liberate yourself, and liberating yourself, you shall be liberating yourself. You shall be blessed with the deed. For those of you who are Bible students, I want to check it. Read the book of James. You will find that story in the first chapter of the Epistle of James, where he looks in and liberates himself. Well, she liberated herself by listening until she heard exactly what she wanted to hear. And she heard it 1 hour and 10 minutes later. Now, the majority of people, I say, they would not have acted upon it. Through habit, they would have gone into a stew. They would have fumed and fretted, and that very day had he brought home the negative news that undoubtedly he would have. They both would have slept, allowing the sun to descend upon their wrath. But now you know that there's not a thing on the outside to change. That first proposition is true, that the man's state of consciousness, which simply means all that he accepts, all that he believes, all that he consents to, that and that alone is the cause of the phenomena of his life. Man can change his state of consciousness, and therefore man can determine the conditions of his life. But the passage of time will not in itself do anything. Time is only a facility for changes in experience, but it cannot produce the change. It is simply that which allows changes to take place, but it can't produce them. Space gives us the facility for experience and time for changes in experience. But of themselves, they do nothing. We must operate the power. And so the individual, if he doesn't become the operator, then he will wait in vain. So no one here this morning, in fact, no one coming here through the year, should ever allow himself to blame another, ever allow himself to justify failure. For he is only betraying his own lack of the use of this law. Anyone that you listen to who is complaining of a third party, he has no idea how he is betraying himself. He is telling you of his own unwashed dishes within himself. But he doesn't know it. He thinks it is in the one that he is now judging. But as he talks to you, listen attentively and see what must be washed within him. And you aid him. In your own mind's eye, rewrite that script that you heard. And when you leave him, just imagine you heard a more lovely conversation than the one you did hear. Just rewrite it for him and in some strange way lift him up within you. For that's your task. It's my task. We aren't here to condemn. We are here to redeem. Having awakened, we have found Christ in us as our own imagination, and so our duty. As it is said, Christ's duty is to do the will of him that sent me, and the will of him that sent me. And that of all that he has given me, I should lose nothing. But I shall raise it up again, and I raise it up by encountering someone, and then finding him down. I raise him up within myself. I simply hear what I want to hear from him. Now, my voice you are hearing this morning, you could take the tone. Listen attentively, and you will hear this tone within you. When you hear the tone within you, then put upon that tone the word that you want to hear, and having put it upon it, listen and do not move until you hear this tone, conveying these words. But make them noble. Don't take that tone and put upon it any word outside of the word which would imply a dignified, noble state, because you are not hurting anyone but self. If you take someone and you put words upon that tone or that voice, and the words do not imply a noble spirit, then you are only allowing that being to be down within you. You are not really performing your duty. So here this morning, believe these propositions, and then having believed them, do something about it. Go out and take what we have told you concerning inner speech. It is truly the greatest of the arts. You listen and only hear what you want to hear. You take your imaginary hand and put it into the hand of a friend, the imaginary hand of a friend, and there you congratulate him on his good fortune. If you want one to congratulate you, you allow yourself to be congratulated. You don't bend the head, you hold it high and accept the congratulation. And when you congratulate him, imagine that he is fully conscious of the good that is already his, and he accepts that congratulation and makes the contact real. That is truly entering the kingdom of heaven. For you enter the kingdom, and the kingdom is within you. It's not without. And you always enter the kingdom by a loving, knowing communion. You can enter the kingdom at every moment of time. Ride the streetcar, ride the buses, and with all the talking and gossiping, you can enter the kingdom and bless a friend by just imagining the friend is with you, and you are putting your hand into his and congratulating him on the good news you've heard concerning him, and listen as though he answered in kind. And in that moment, you have actually blessed him. He may be 1,000 miles away, but from that moment on, things begin to stir within his world, for you have brought about a change within the structure of his mind. And every modification of the structure of a man's mind must result in corresponding outer changes. So you bring about these lovely changes within you. Look at the testimonial, one you heard this morning. Here is a pile of letters, and this is really a tight pile. It is one of the biggest piles, I think, that you've received here. And this week's mail, I can't begin to tell you what a thrill it is to receive, one after the other, not begging for help anymore, but giving praise and thanks for the principle that brought the help into their world. I can't tell you how many in the last 2 weeks have received an increase in income, increase of position, a better state of health. Things happened because they did something about it. They were not just warming a seat here on Sunday morning and waiting for things to happen by association. They produced the thing by producing it first within themselves. So here this appeals to men who are big enough to stand on their own feet, men who want spiritual meat and who have outgrown the milk given to sleeping men. So if you want the literal concept, you're still asleep, and this really would not be the place to get it. For from this platform, you are going to be given meat, spiritual meat. For you must go out and do something about it. If you have the greatest knowledge in the world concerning foods, and you didn't eat, you would die of starvation. And so it's not the knowledge of it. It's the application of it that counts. Now this coming week we start tomorrow. And it's an interesting one for those who like their Bible. Those who would like to put their mental teeth into it tonight and come tomorrow night with some intuitive knowledge of it. It's the 49th chapter of Genesis. You'll find many of them. I'll quote tomorrow. But in the 49th of Genesis, here is what it says. First of all, he calls his sons together to tell them their future, and there are 12 of them. It's Jacob calling his sons. But the fifth one, when he calls the fifth one, he tells him, the scepter shall never drop, shall never depart from your hand. Never. Not in eternity. His name is Judah, the one that fathered the line, that flowered in Christ Jesus. When you read the genealogy as given to us in Matthew and Luke, then it said of Judah that he took his foal and he tied it to a vine, and took the culprit ass and tied it to a good vine. And then he washed his garments in wine, and he washed his clothes in the blood of grapes. And his eye was red with wine, his teeth white with milk. Well, now, those of you who still would like to read that, literally, you may get some satisfaction out of washing your clothes in wine. I don't. I'd rather drink it. But some wash theirs in the blood of grapes, and then the blood of grapes, and then the teeth white with milk, and the eye bloodshot with wine. Well, now that was the one who fathered out of Tamar the twins that brought forth the line that flowered in Christ Jesus. So go back and read the genealogy of Judah, and then see what Judah did, and how he took two animals. One was a foal, and one was a coal, and one was a colt. Now, I won't tell you the interpretation. You exercise your intuitive faculty, and you come tomorrow night and you hear what we have to say about the amethyst, or the wine stone. How a man must make the amethyst. How a man must take his garment, a thing that clothes the mind of man, and wash them in the blood of grapes. How a man not only must do it, but his eye must become equally bloodshot with wine, and his teeth white with milk. And we will show you tomorrow night why they placed upon him the scarlet robe, and then placed upon him the most mystical of all, the purple robe. So as they placed them up to the very final act was the placing of the purple robe upon the man who had awakened, who is now ready to ascend on high, higher levels within himself. But you can't ascend until you first make the purple robe, and although we have orders in this world who have scarlet robes and purple robes, no man can make it for you. And so it cannot be woven in any factory. It has to be woven from the factory within yourself. So tomorrow night, for those who are vitally interested in going deeper into the mysteries, our subject is the 12th, an amethyst. The very last act of a man, the 12th. For there are only 12, then comes the most. I would say the least precious of all stones in the eyes of man. But in the eye of God, it's the most precious. And it's not the little thing you find among the stones. It's the one you find within yourself. So that is tomorrow's subject. This being my last Sunday for a year, I wish to leave no doubt in your mind of what I tried to tell you in the last 19 lectures. So I am going to ask a question which you can silently answer yourself. Have you lived this life of yours in such a way that you desire to live it again? Well, if you haven't, you better listen very carefully to what I will say this morning. If you have not already started, for may I tell you, the next life is this life. When the eye is open, you will see it. That man, unless he awakes and changes the tracks of this life, he walks them forever. So, if you have not lived this life in such a way that you really desire to live it again, you start now to interfere with these tracks and lay new tracks. Let me give you just one simple little vision. These are all true visions of the speaker. Lying on my bed, suddenly the eye opened, the inner eye opened, and I saw a man casually dressed in working clothes walking the sidewalks of a major city. As he came to a hole that was open to receive coal. In fact, the coal had just been delivered. He dropped something from his hand, and bending down, instead of picking up the thing dropped, he picked up huge hunks of coal that were scattered around the hole, and then my vision relaxed. When I reconcentrated the vision, it was on the early part of that scene of the man walking down the sidewalk. He came to the manhole. He dropped, as he had in the previous state. Bending down, he picked up the coal as he had done before. Everything was in detail. As I saw it for the second time, I said, now that scene hasn't changed one iota. My attention again relaxed. When I reconcentrated it, it was on the early part of the scene. I could prophesy for that man. I knew exactly what he would do every moment of time right up to that manhole. That he would drop his package and not pick it up, but pick up the coal. I knew he would look into that manhole and then change his mind, either because someone below saw him pick it up and he didn't want the consequences of his action, or else he had a change of heart. But I knew in detail what that man would do. We are walking tracks, and the tracks are forever. And by the mere curvature of time, your next life is this life. You simply replay it. So if you have not so played it that you are proud of it, you start now and you start the change today. We have given you a system by which you change it. For those who haven't heard why I say you walk tracks, you are standing forever in the presence of an infinite and eternal energy. And from this energy, all things proceed, but they proceed according to pattern. Energy is moving in a certain pattern, and you determine the pattern that it takes. For you actually lay down these tracks within you. That energy flows over by the use of your inner conversation. This energy, I call it now mind, follows the tracks laid down in a man's own inner talking. So if your inner conversations are not what they should be, I ask you today to start carrying on conversations within yourself from premises of fulfilled ideals. The man you want to be, the woman you want to be, the woman you want to be. If you have failed so far to embody it, now you begin to assume that you are that man, that you are that woman. And inwardly carry on conversations with your friends, those that respect you, or those you want to respect you, and carry on these conversations from the premises that they see in you the man and the woman that you want the world to see, just as though you were. And these words, inner words, which are really the breeding ground of future action, will lay down new tracks. And then the energy which is always flowing will flow over these tracks, and the conditions and the circumstances of life will change. If you do not lay new tracks, I will prophesy for you. You will find yourself repeating it, but you will not know you've done it before. If I could only take you now into the inner vision with me and show you this room rising, everything rising in detail like a three-dimensional curtain ascending, but everything is moving up, and yet it remains. It is so altogether automatic that it ascends every moment of time. The whole world is ascending, and as it ascends, the world remains the same. It's almost as though not a thing has happened, and so you can't see it. But if the inner eye opens, you see it ascend, and as it leaves off, that which begins is the duplicate, the perfect duplicate of the thing that rose, and it rises in a three-dimensional manner, so that when a man goes over these tracks, he is totally unaware that he has walked them forever. So I bring you a message to make you conscious. Man must awake from the dream where he is simply an automaton. He moves like a machine. Then he begins to awake. And when he awakes, then he is not that man at all that he seemingly in the past played for eternity. He awakes into a new being, a new man. Now, the new man is a man of new conversations. As told you in Ephesians, put off the former conversation. They belong to the old man that is corrupt, and put on the new man by a transformation of mind. And the new man is identified with completely new words. He speaks only the kind things. He is incapable of any unlovely thought in the world. He is incapable of even listening to the unlovely. For inwardly, he speaks only the kind, only the loving things of the world. Then he finds himself awakening a man within that was asleep. He awakens the second man, which is called Christ Jesus in the Bible, which I tell you now is your own wonderful, loving imagination. When imagination awakes, it is incapable of being exercised in any way outside of the loving way. So every time you use your imagination lovingly, you are literally awakening this inner man, and you're mediating God to man. If I think of anyone in a loving way, I'm in contact with that being, and God flows toward him. Now, because this is my last Sunday, I will give you what I gave the class last Friday. Do not see it just as some metaphorical picture. See it as an actual picture. Imagine yourself at the very base of a wonderful waterfall, and that water is flowing beautifully on you. And imagine it's flowing through you, and now from you, and flowing towards someone you think of. I make this statement because it's a true statement. We are now in Eden, but we are asleep, as told you, in the second of Genesis. Man went sound asleep when he was placed to dress it and to keep it. To awake, do this. Just imagine yourself the center through which water radiates, and everyone in this world is rooted in me and ends in me as I am rooted in and end in God. So I am in God's garden. It's Eden. But in God's garden, every man in the world has a plot, a little garden. In that garden, there are trees that grow. You can see them. If I look at this man now and inwardly look at his plot in my garden, I will see the trees. Some will be called health, some I call wealth. The tree of dignity, the tree of nobility, the tree of nobility, the tree of being wanted. They may be withered. They will never really die, but they may be withered. They are in need of water. Just imagine that you are watering that plant and see in your mind's eye the leaves appear on what formerly was a barren plant. See the fruit appear wherever he is in the world as you water his garden, which really is your own garden. As you water it, he will embody the very qualities that the tree is now beginning to bear and radiate. You name the tree. Whatever you name it, that it is. And you name this one if you know he is unwanted. He wants to be wanted. You name it and let the water flow towards it. Imagine it's growing healthily in that garden, and see it put out its leaves, and see it put out its leaves, and see it put out its fruit. Wherever he is in the world, he will begin to be wanted, by people in his world. If he is unemployed, it's a tree of employment, and see it radiate its leaves and radiate its leaves. He will be wanted and he will be gainfully employed. I tell you, this is not just an idle statement. Everyone here can do it, and everyone should do it. And whenever you water the tree in anyone's garden at the same time, you are watering your own garden in the eternal one of God. For I am the vine, and ye are the branches. Every man can say the same thing. So as you rise here, there are 2,600 of you. You individually are the central vine of God's garden. And everyone in your world is a branch in that vine. So when I, as a central vine, water a branch in my garden, at that same moment I am being watered. And my garden is being watered in your wonderful garden. I don't have to water my own. Just by taking care of the many gardens in God's Eden, I take care of my own garden. That is in the vine of everyone in the world. You try it, and you can bless everyone in the world, and then eventually the eye opens, the ear opens, the inner man awakes, and you see the most glorious world which is always here to be seen. Only we, in our sleep, had shut it out. We shut the whole wonderful golden world out by going to sleep and becoming an automaton. But take me seriously, for your next life is this life. You make this life what you want to make it, because if you don't, you will find yourself automatically, and you won't even know it. Because as a sleeping person, you don't know you are walking the same track. But if I could only take you within me and let you see with the eye of the inner eye, and watch these automatons in the world, sleeping people. Yes, the eye is open, and they seem to be awake, but they're really sound asleep, for they're repeating the same thing. Now become conscious. As you become conscious, you enter the most glorious circle of awakened humanity. I call it the conscious circle of humanity, or as my old teacher used to call it, the brother. It simply means the awakened man. And when he awakes, they're all glorious beings, for they're all the image of the divine one. So try it today with the art of revision. At the end of this day, review today. If some unlovely thing in the day, don't allow it. You rewrite it. Take that same scene and rewrite it, and having rewritten it, replay it. In your imagination, you imagine the action to be unfolding, and you replay everything in the world. As you replay it as you ought to have played it the first time you've changed it. And the moment is never receding as people think. The moment is advancing. Now this may seem an insane statement to tell you, that yesterday is today's future. It seems insane. You think it's not, it's past. But by the curvature of time, you will discover, but you will not know it, because you will be asleep unless you begin to awaken. And you will come upon what is yesteryear in your future, for the moment is never receding. It is always advancing into the future to confront it. And so if you don't change it, you will simply find yourself repeating over and over what, luckily, in God's infinite mercy, that sleep shuts out the memory of it. So you are doing it, and you think you're doing it for the first time. What I ask you to awake for the purpose of this platform is to awaken everyone who comes here, that we may all enter this brotherhood of awakened humanity. Now we are told there were two gifts given to man at birth. It doesn't mean this little birth when I left my mother's womb. But when I left the womb of my father, that is the grand womb, the womb of creation. When before the world was, he created me and made me perfect and set me in this world for a purpose, educative purpose. But he gave me two gifts. He gave me his own mind, and he gave me the gift of speech, the very thing he used to create a world. So he spoke the world into being, and then gave me the gift by which he spoke the world into being. So he gave me mind and speech. If I use the gift wisely and do it rightly, I will be led into the realization, into the fulfillment of my every desire. Not one is beyond my ability to realize if I continually use it wisely. When I quit the body, as the world calls a man dead, when I lead this into another dimension by the wise use of the same two gifts, I will be brought into the company of the blessed. If I awake, if I don't use it wisely, I continue my circle of sleep. If I use it wisely, I will break the circle of recurrence and rise beyond it into eternity. If I don't, I continue on the curved line of time and repeat it over and over and over until someday I awake. For I am destined to be conformed to the image of his Son. So I have no doubt that everyone will awake, but why not start the awakening process now? And you start it by practicing the art of revision. You try it. Don't treat it idly. I ask you and I beg you to read and read over and over again the chapter, the pruning shears of revision, and take it day after day, and never let the sun descend upon your wrath, any vexation or any problem of the day. Resolve it before you sleep and carry that resolved picture into sleep, and you will find the inner man awakening. But you try it with your friends, and that you are the grand waterfall. The Bible speaks of water. The mystic knows it does not mean water. It means truth. And so when I see anyone in my mind's eye and see him free, I am giving him the only truth that will set him free. So if I water his plant, imagine the water is really going to it, and I see the leaves begin to appear, and that man becoming free. He becomes healthy. He becomes healthy. He becomes loved. He becomes loved. Then those trees are growing beautifully in my garden. And so as I do that, not only will he benefit from my watering his plant, but I will benefit. I will begin to awaken. So I ask everyone here to really try it. Now I know today the title was The Coin of Heaven. But this being the last day, I thought I would simply give a sort of quick summary of what I have tried to tell you. For the purpose behind the 19 lectures was to stimulate you to interfere with your time track, that you may do something about it, for the passage of time cannot change it. If you wait thinking there is going to be some change beyond the grave, I tell you, you will wait in vain. There is no transforming power beyond the grave. All transforming power is in man now to interfere with his time track. And you interfere with it by simply changing one moment in the course of a day, not accepting it as final, no matter how factual the day. You know you did have that experience. Don't allow the day to descend upon it and say, well, I did have it. Go back to that moment in time. Rewrite it, replay it in the revised version, and do it over and over in your imagination until that takes on the tones of reality. As it takes on the tones of reality, you have changed your future. Take another incident and change it, and keep on changing all the little episodes, all the little experiences, and make them conform to a more idealistic experience, and relive it. If anyone is here for the first time, you might think, well, that's fooling yourself, but you try it. Try it and see if the inner man will not awaken. And when he awakens, you will see a world that is automatic. You will see a world that's a machine, and the whole vast world playing their parts that they've played forever, and will continue to play on the curvature of time forever until he snaps out of it and rises from the dead, as you are told, awake, you that sleep and rise from the dead. The state called sleep now is likened unto death, where the son has died. So we are told the second son, the prodigal, that when he returned from that cycle and he was met, the father said, he that was lost is found, and he that was dead is alive again. So this state of lostness is likened unto death. And the only purpose now is to ride, not to amass a fortune, although you are entitled to it, not to become famous, although you are entitled to it, but simply to awake from the state of sleep. And I know of no other way to awaken a man unless I can show him how mechanical he is. And if you will take and practice seriously the art of revision, the eye will open, and you will have the experiences the speaker spoke of. You too, lying on your bed, will find the eye peering into a city that may be 2,000 miles away, and there you will see more clearly than I see you now. And you will watch the tracks of a man, and then disinterest, and all of a sudden, and then disinterest, and all of a sudden you decide to once more to be interested, and you don't have a memory. Image of the man. You see the whole thing all over again. You see the man walk the same sidewalk. He does everything he did a moment before. Then take it back again. That track is laid forever, and he will walk it forever until he awakes. So I ask everyone here to take me seriously. If this seems a bit too mystical for you, I don't apologize. It's the only thing I can give you, for as I begin to awake, I've got to give you the food on which then my Father feeds me. He feeds me on new ideas. He changes my values. He changes all my meanings in the world. I don't have the same meaning I had last year. I don't have the same values I had last year. For the motives I had last year might have been along a different line. But then all of a sudden things change, and you can't place value where formerly you placed it. You can't place it on wealth. You can't place it on names. You can't place it on recognition. All your values change, and then you begin to inwardly see a new wonderful world. So I tell you, this garden of which I speak is a true garden. This you call the world. Don't believe for one moment you are in exile. This wonderful, visible, objective world of ours is not a place of exile. It's the living garment of my Father. It really is his living garment. But it needs interpreters. Individual men come as they begin to awaken, and they will interpret for you the strange, discordant harmony. For to you, if I tell you, everything in your world is related by affinity to your own mental activity. You can't see it, and so you can't quite see this discord as related to you if you didn't think that way that you know of. You weren't conscious of it. If you were conscious of the activity within, you would see everything related to yourself, your own being. What you do not now see, you will still know it is still related. So interpreters come because the interpreter, as he begins to awaken, he knows this wonderful world has a voice for him that speaks of things behind the veil of your own mind. For behind your face right now, there's an activity of your own imagination. And that activity, could you see it? You would see it projected as the conditions and circumstances of your life. Not one thing is out of order. Change the activity and you change the world in which you live. And you change that activity by the changing of your inner speech. For speech mirrors your mind, and your mind mirrors God. If you don't change the speech, you haven't changed the activity. And if you don't change the activity, you can't change the conditions of life, for they only come bearing witness of this inner action of your mind. So you want to change. I hope you do. But if you can now reflect upon your life, be it 10 years or be it 60 years, and you can't say within yourself, I would want to live this again if I had the freedom of choice, then you better start right now changing it, because I make you a prophecy. I make you a promise. Your next life is this life. So if you cannot now in reflection say, I desire to live it again, then start today to lay down new tracks. Because if you don't, you're going to live it again. And living it again, you won't even know you are living it again. It is so altogether automatic. It's so effortless as you walk the tracks. Or you stand in the presence of energy and you can't stop walking. You've laid them and you will walk them, and the curvature of time will bring you back and back and back forever and forever until you break it. And you break it. And you begin to awaken. And when you awaken, you enter a circle of awakened humanity. And I'll tell you, you know them more intimately than anyone you now know in this state of sleep. There is not a person on earth that you know as intimately as those who have awakened. When you awake, when you go into their presence and you mingle with them, you become one. You do not lose your identity. In fact, you tend ever toward greater and greater individualization. You never become absorbed and lose your identity. But as you awaken to the being that you always were. But you had forgotten it and went sound asleep. There is a beauty in the inner man that the outer has never touched, never scarred. And so as you awaken, and they will be there to meet you, because they are waiting eagerly for the breaking of the circle of recolor. So you try it. We have told you many things this year, many things that seem too mystical. But I warned you, when I took it 4 Sundays ago, this year I would give you the end of a golden string. And I called upon you to roll it into a ball. And if you did, it would lead you in at heaven's gate, built in, Jerusalem's wall. Well, I felt I have given you that string, but I cannot roll it into a ball for you. I promise you I will water your garden, but it won't awaken you. It will awaken you only to lovelier things in a way, but it will not really break the circle for you. So I offer you now this day again the end of the golden string, but I call upon you to wind it and roll it into a ball by the daily application of the principle of revision by daily watching your inner actions and see if they correspond to the actions you desire to perform in the outer world. Watch your conversations carefully. Are they from premises of fulfilled ideas? If they're not, go back and make them actually correspond to the ideal you want to embody in this world. Start. That is winding it into a ball, and it will lead you in at heaven's gate, built in Jerusalem's wall. I have no doubt in my mind, for I know from experience that's how I opened up that wall. I opened it up by application. So I warned you every time I have taken the platform that the knowledge you have now is of no avail unless it's applied. A little knowledge, if carried out in action, is more profitable than much knowledge which you neglect to carry out in action. If you had all the knowledge in the world and you didn't put it into practice, you wouldn't awaken. Now here this morning, everyone has heard it. You take it today and start this day revising and watch the circle begin to snap. Watch the eye begin to open. And I tell you, they're open, and I tell you, there isn't a gift on earth, there isn't a possession in the world that you would want more than the opening of the eye. When? The eye opens. That's why I say your values change. The meaning of life changes, or you wouldn't sell the eye that opens for all the wealth of the world. You wouldn't exchange it for any recognition in the world. Now conferred upon the so-called great, you see the so-called great all equally sound asleep, playing their parts, walking curved lines, and then you snap it and move into a wonderful world of awakened humanity. And there you see these glorified beings, but really glorified beings who preceded you into the conscious circle of humanity. And now my time is up.